Okay, so this is where we left off last session. We have the basic arm functionality, means we have IK, we have IK FK blend, so if I take this guy I can rotate, so this is our FK chain. We did color coding, we did visibility blending between FK and IK. So let's switch back to IK. And we have only one arm so far. We do the mirroring in the very last when we finished with the twist arm. So let's do the twist arm for the lower arm. First we need to make the joints visible. So if you have a structure like this, so it's already almost the final structure for delivering a character. We have our do not touch group, and in here we have our joints, which are currently invisible, so hit H to make them visible. Then we will need to find the joint here in the hierarchy. It's somewhere in here, so just select the lower arm joint, hit F while hovering your mouse over the outliner, and you find where all that is. Luckily I already selected the right one here, the purple one, which is the skin bind version. As a matter of fact, we can actually make the blue and the yellow branch invisible, so just select those and hit H. So it's getting out of the way. So what we need is only the SB arm group, the purple one. And for simplicity, I will just isolate that here in the viewport. So select the group, hover over the viewport, and Shift I gets me into isolation mode. So basically we have to create a joint chain that starts here at the lower arm joint and ends at the wrist joint and has multiple joints in between. So the simplest way of approaching this is basically just duplicating the wrist joint. So here's our wrist joint. I hit Ctrl D and I get another wrist joint here with all the fingers and also the constraint, which I don't need at this point anymore. So just delete all of this and hit delete. Then let's rename this. Let's call this twist wrist. So this is our first twist joint, and we duplicate that one again, and then we move it up to this point, somewhere 1/3 of that distance here. So if you take that distance from that elbow joint to this wrist joint and then divide it into 3 equal parts, and you just eyeball that. That doesn't have to be super precise anyway. Repeat the process, Ctrl D, and put the other one in between those two, so it's like equal parts. Doesn't have to be super precise, but try your best to get it right. Then we have to reparent things. So this here is the parent of this guy here, and then this is a child of this guy here. So you get like this joint chain here. Let's select all of them here and then make them a bit smaller so it's clear that they are basically duplicates, especially here on the wrist joint. And maybe we can also change the color of that. We just need to select the first one on this chain. Get into our attribute editor to the drawing overrides, which is not under display. So let me collapse everything here. Display drawing overrides, enable drawing overrides, and then find a color. And I stick with the Neo lesson, so it's like compatible. So I just make them green. And also here in the outliner, let's make a outliner color green. So don't need to do every single one, or why not? Maybe just do that. So it's clear. There you go. All three are green. And they're just sitting there for now. So let's leave isolation mode. Shift I again. And when you move your IK chain, you see the green ones come along just perfectly, right? So what's not happening here right now is when I rotate this arm, they are not twisting. Okay, so this is what we want to change. And let me rotate this hand by 90 degrees. So basically, these joints get the rotation value of this joint and that joint, the pink one, and then have a certain percentage. For example, this one here, 100% of the wrist joint and 0 of the elbow, while this one here gets 0.6 of the elbow and 0.3 of the wrist. So basically the sum of these two numbers gives 1. Okay, then this one is the other way around, so it's 0.6 for the wrist and 0.3 for the elbow. So that's basically the idea. Orientation constraints with two parents or two drivers. That's basically what we are going to do. So first we select the elbow, or rather the lower arm joint, then shift select the wrist, the purple one, and then select the joint. We start with the wrist because that one is the easiest to understand. Constrain, orient, constrain. We don't need to maintain offset. We just make sure that everything else is on, all the axes, and add. And as you can see, this joint rotated 45 degrees now. Yeah, 45. And the reason why is because the elbow and the wrist are going into this rotation 50% each. But we want only the wrist, so let's make this value 0. And then we have exactly what the wrist is doing, as you can see. Repeat the process for the other joints. So again, elbow, wrist joint, and then let's start with this one here. Constrain, orient. Now for this one we are going to just constrain on the x-axis, because you don't want this joint to rotate outwards like a broken bone. We want only the twist, and as you can see, the red axis here, that is the x-axis. So we only want the x-axis values from these joints, and everything else is being ignored. So we have that applied, and let's see, we have again an equal weighting here, again not what we want. So let's make a distribution of 0.66 for the lower arm joint, and 0.33 for the wrist joint. So basically these two numbers sum up to 1. Let's repeat the process for the last one. Elbow, wrist, and then the green one down here. constrain, orient, same settings, just the x-axis. And this one has 0.33 for the lower arm and 0.66 for the wrist, because it's closer to the wrist. Okay, so more of the wrist rather than and less of the elbow. So let's see if we can make that visible. So pay attention when I rotate the hand. You see the joint, the green one, at the wrist itself is getting 100% of the rotation, while the next one further down to the elbow is getting a little bit less of that rotation, and then the one that's even closer to the elbow, even less of that rotation. So the influence of the elbow is stronger there. Okay. And as you can see, if I rotate other axis, it ignores the other axis, because the constraints that we made for the in-between joints here, they only take the x-axis into account. Okay. That is pretty much it already. There's no blend. This is the values here in the constraints are fixed, and it depends, of course, on how many twist joints you make. So I made only 3 twist joints here. One is sitting directly on the wrist. So basically it was 2 in-betweens, and that's why we have only these values here. If you have more, you need to divide it accordingly.